Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Gungans and droids across our beloved empire. It's great to be in the empire today, and welcome to the Grand Arena Coliseum, where today, you and I are going to be ranking all the Omicrons, the definitive tier list of Galaxy heroes from the best to the very worst, and answer the question, where should you be putting your hard-earned Omicrons in Galaxy of Heroes? And this is going to be a little bit different compared to other ranking videos we do out there, because Omicrons are, one, very hard to come across, and two, you want to put them on specific characters to transform your characters, and furthermore, you really only want to be applying Omicrons in select game modes that'll benefit you at the very most. I'm getting word from Gary that apparently, what's Gary, what? We have a surprise? Well, go hit it with it.
Whaler fell on the wall. Who's the sponsor for them all?
Raid Shadow Legends!
Isn't this the most ambitious free-to-play mobile game that boasts AAA quality graphics, that has over 450 champions that you can also play on your PC device?
I'm gonna flex some of my favorite characters in Raid Shadow Legends.
Coming in at number 1, Cargel.
Holy cow, this guy is bonkers!
He makes your team lightning fast, and he's got a mass cleanse capability that also prevents further debuffs, and Raid is running a Deliana chase event. All you have to do is log into Raid for 7 days between now and July 20th. So click on the link or scan my QR code, and you'll get a free starter pack worth over $40. All this treasure will be waiting for you right up here. When you're in game, type in the promo code MyDeliana to get 50 XP brews to instantly get Deliana to the maximum level of 50.
So as always, there will be a link down below in the video description if you want access to this graphic. And let me just explain a few things before we start talking about them in a little bit more depth here. I kind of organize it in a very certain way. We're kind of organizing per game mode because maybe you're one of those people that cares more about territory battles than territory wars or Grand Arena, and it's nice having individual ranking brackets per event out there. But also on the left side, you see we divide each of these categories with an S, A, B, C, or F tier depending on how good it is. And you might be noticing, here's just my opinion straight from the get-go, the left column is going to be the best Omicrons in the game. The best bang for your buck is Grand Arena. Territory Wars is the second best game mode in terms of Omicron uses. Territory Battles and Conquest, you notice there's some red highlights going on here. And what I mean by that is I highly recommend just don't apply these Omicrons. But you know, 40,000 people have applied the Rolo, Rebel, All-Star, Late Organa Omicron. If you're someone that cares about Territory Wars or Territory Battles and Conquest, go for it. But I highly recommend, due to the exclusivity and the crazy power Omicrons have to offer, you want to put them in game mode, specifically to Grand Arena, and maybe some to Territory Wars. So let's first start our conversation off with Grand Arena. This is the Grand Arena Coliseum. This is by far the most important category, in my opinion, to be applying your Omicrons. Here's my rule with splitting Omicrons. I probably recommend an 80% Grand Arena, 20% Territory Wars split in terms of the maximum for Territory Wars. But honestly, you can go 100% in Grand Arena, and I would not fault you whatsoever. It is the game mode where your crystals are tied to, so you obviously want to apply majority of your Omicrons there. Now, maybe that could change. Maybe Territory Wars become more important. There are more Territory Omicrons than there are Grand Arena Omicrons. Maybe they have something in the works to make Territory Wars more important. But let's start off with the S tier. We're going to kind of go over this with a little bit of depth, but not going into too many specifics here. S tier, these are by far the mandatory Omicrons. In my opinion, they greatly transform a character or faction, and these are known to beat Galactic Legends or do some absurd team versus a lot of teams out there. Star Killer, there is much conflict in you, is the must-have. Probably, arguably, the best overall Grand Arena Omicron because it drastically transforms and takes a lot of mishmash leftover characters to take on Galactic Legends, like Supreme Leader Kylo, for example, Sith the Turtle, Rey here. Wampa, boy, people have Wampa fever. And let me just say this, it is an S tier Omicron. But with great Womps comes great Womp ability. He could define a win or a loss here. Sometimes you get way too cocky due to the power hungriness of the Wampa, and you might lose a Grand Arena because you want to try to solo something, and it might not work out. But man, it is so darn fun, whether you win or lose with Wampa. Then we have Zam Wessel transforming the Bounty Hunters, although I will say, she's not as crazy inside of 3v3 Grand Arena, but in 5v5 Grand Arena, man, she is killer, making Lord Vader's easy to walk over, as well as Rey's two-piecing a Jedi Master Kenobi team, a must-have Zeta in the game, especially if you're a bounty hunter nerd. That's one way to take them to the next level here. A tier, basically the way I define A tier is these are still really good. Maybe not Galactic Legend competitive Omicrons, but still very solid Omicrons nonetheless. And that's gonna be Qui-Gon Jinn, First Order TIE Pilot, Tusken Raider. And another thing I like with the A tier is it has to drastically kind of like transform a faction still to a very good degree. Maybe not to the level of the S tier out there, but Qui-Gon, throw in Anakin, the Jedi Knight Anakin, that's a team right there. You can two-man teams out there. You can cheese your way through teams. You can put some really garbage stuff and get some fantastic results with the Qui-Gon Jinn Omicron. First Order TIE Pilot, new to this list here. We still have a lot to learn, but in 3v3, we're seeing a lot of fun stuff happen. And man, I think 5v5 is really where the magic's going to be at. Perhaps the next time I make this list, we'll see this become more of a Galactic Legend competitive thing. Hard to say. We'll have to wait and see. And then Tuskens, man, another sweet sell for the Lord Vader farm if you do want to pursue him. Zam Wessel's one of them. Tusken Raider is another. People can struggle with it. They don't know how to handle it. You can cheese your way through tons of teams out there. Not a lot of ways to beat them until you get to some anti-revive stuff. A lot of fun. Trash tier, turn to hero tier, and we're not going to spend too much time talking about the B, C, and F tiers out here. The B tier I consider to be, for example, this is no impact on the actual character or team. Iden and Dash, fantastic teams, but the Omicrons are just kind of like, they're nice. It's a cherry on top, but not at all necessary. But then we have things like Chief Chirpa, for example, which it's been one I've been debating to apply. The problem is here, when you do reach their highest peak of performance, they're not like doing anything crazy mind-blowing. And the other problem is you need some really crazy mods on your Ewoks, especially Pop Blue, if you really want to get something going. So it's the one thing nice about Omicrons is usually just apply it and it works. You still got a lot of work to do with the Ewoks. It's really the only Omicron I have not applied from the B to S tier. I've been wanting to. It's still a solid Omicron. Then we go to the C tier, where the C tier, I don't think you need these to participate in Grand Arena that much, but if you're somebody that doesn't have a lot of teams, these are still going to be okay to throw on. But then there's things like Starkiller, where the other Omicrons, I've been getting pretty much more or less 95% of the viability out of Starkiller. These last two Omicrons on them in the C tier, they're not necessary, and I don't see myself applying them anytime soon due to the scarcity of Omicrons. At F tier, don't even waste your time. There are way more important Omicrons. Only reason you're applying them is maybe you don't see yourself getting another one of these Grand Arena teams put together anytime soon. Moving on, let's talk about Territory Wars. Now, this is a little bit more debatable. As I said, you can have 100% Grand Arena Omicrons and none Territories. I don't blame you. Territories is just not as frequent, not as important in terms of resources, and some people just don't like it. But besides that, if you do like Territory Wars, this is what I would recommend. At the minimum, go for the S tier ones. You have the S tier ones, I feel like you're pretty much set for the grand majority of what you need to accomplish inside of Territories. That is Captain Phasma, Mara Jade, as well as Boba Fett's leadership ability that he has on the Omicron. If you have these three Omicrons, I think you can feel satisfied. You're being a very good contributing guild member for the grand majority of what's required out of those. These are all competitive in terms of Galactic Legend counters. For example, Captain Phasma can beat, for example, some Lord Vaders out there, some Sith Eternals out there. Mara Jade, yeah, she might not be getting the crazy amounts of speed of Starkiller inside a Grand Arena, but getting 100% turn meter from the very get-go, and even Hux's lead doesn't stop that initial turn meter boost. It's solid. You can find a lot of ways to make leftover Imperials do fantastic things or go to the Galactic Legends like Boba Fett's Sign of Jango. Boba Fett's Sign of Jango, one of the more controversial characters in the game, really tied the Territories. And that's why he's not really praised as much, because Territories is just not as important of a game mode. But if you do care about Territories, he is going to be very nice for off-minute things. Pretty much his main bread and butter is countering Lord Vader. But then again, you don't really need the Boba Fett Omicron to counter Lord Vader, as we see inside of Grand Arena, but nonetheless still very solid. And then the A tier, we have the other two Boba Fett Sign of Jango Omicrons and the Mace Windu. I was very tempted to put Mace Windu in S tier because it really transforms the Kenobi faction, but to be fair, you don't really need it to get a lot of use out of Kenobi. It's just that extra level of RNG that could really throw off your opponent. Still very solid. You could make the argument this is an S tier Omicron. I would probably say get those three S tier ones on top, get the Mace Windu Omicron. You are really set for the most part here. Then we have our B, C, and F tier. I will say this, I have right now the Inquisitors in the F tier. I think once the Grand Inquisitor, because we're gonna see a lot of fluctuation with the Inquisitors, but as it stands in May 2022, there's not a lot of reason to be slapping on Inquisitor Omicrons, and even if you did, you're not getting a lot of use out of them right now. But I assume very much so when Grand Inquisitor comes out, we're gonna see a lot of fluctuation here. But we got some other nice things like Embo's still fantastic for the bounty hunters. If this was Grand Arena, I would suggest a lot more of these Omicrons. But just right now, you should really only be focusing on maybe the top two tiers when it comes to these Territory War Omicrons. Not to say that Hera and as well as Juhani Embo aren't useful. It's just that you don't want to be putting Omicrons into a game mode that just isn't as important. But if you love territories, I highly recommend getting the B through A through S tier as well here. Then we got some other things, for example, like Farm Boy Luke and Jin and T3M4. Due to the territory war meta, this is a little bit different from Grand Arena. Unlike, for example, the Grand Arena C tier, I have Akbar and Leia in the C tier, mainly because you kind of need both of them to really make the Akbar team work. But at least there, you can maybe find some use out of it to take out some teams, because the Grand Arena meta is a lot wider than territories. My problem with the territory Omicron for T3, as well as Jin and Luke, is that the territory meta is not that wide to fully appreciate them. And if you are in a territory meta that maybe allows for it, it's gonna get quickly fades out. As you and your guild grow, the meta's gonna shrink down and you're gonna get those Omicrons to fade out. Here's the thing, you don't want Omicrons to fade out because your guild and your roster grows. You only want Omicrons to fade out of existence because the meta has shifted. And that leads us into our conversation of territory battles and conquest, which, as I've said, I would not recommend it. Don't go for territory battles and conquest. But there are people that have applied. 40,000 people have applied the Rebel Officer Leia Organa Omicron, for example. And if you do care about territories or territory battles and you want to apply them, I think Leia Officer Organa is probably the one to shoot for. But again, I just don't recommend it. But if you're persistent on it, the reason why she's important is because it allows you to platoon important characters inside a light side Geonosis territories, which is more important and more difficult than dark side Geonosis territories, and allows you to use your leftover rebels that you don't platoon to make a solid team out of it. But again, as your roster and your guild grows, you're going to have enough light side teams. The problem with light side Geonosis territories is it's not that we don't have enough teams. We have the team. It just, right now, there's not enough GP in the game to fully satisfy the maximum star count inside of light side Geonosis territories. So the point I'm getting is, as your roster grows, this Omicron is going to phase out of existence unless maybe they release another territory battles, and these might become worrisome. But right now, the current territory battles, I feel like these are not going to get a lot of use out of them. I'm actually very surprised. We have 30 or 40,000 Karth Onasi Omicrons applied. And man, I think people are only applying those maybe because they're not fully in tune with the game, or maybe they just think, I'm not going to have another big team for a long time. Some people play this game super passively, and they just kind of have it, and they're not going to have another team that's maybe for Grand Arena territories, and they're just like, yeah, I'll just slap it on because that's really the only team I have. Otherwise, the Karth Onasi team is greatly split up because it's light side and dark side. Right now, I don't recommend these. And leading into the last part, Conquest. Conquest has the element of, as your roster grows, these are just going to be phased out because you're not going to need them as much, because Conquest is about having a lot of teams. It's not just about having one good Omicron team. And the other problem with Conquest is it's very seasonal. Besides your roster outgrowing your Omicrons potentially, like in territory battles, in Conquest, if there's no droid bonuses, you're not going to get a lot of bang out of this Omicron here. And furthermore, Shorty, great character, not a knock on the character, but you're just not going to get that much mileage outside that Omicron. And it's still such a new character. The chance of you having Shorty ready and a bunch of droids are probably minimal at this point in time. I don't know where they're heading with the Conquest Omicrons. I do not recommend them. I think you're much better off at the very minimum. If you really want to, Territorials is more important than Conquest. Hence the order of the hierarchy. Grand Arena being the most important. Territories number 2. Territorials number 3. Conquest. These last two tiers here with the Territorials and Conquest, I recommend staying away from them. But ladies and gentlemen, Gungans and droids, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Let me know what Omicrons are on your radar. Would you disagree with me? I love hearing maybe the differing opinions that you guys have lingering out there. That's the great thing about Galaxy series. We all have differing opinions, but I think for the most part, a lot of people are going to agree that that's looking like the list that's going to be staple for a while. And the next time you make this list here soon, we're going to have Darth Malgus as well as the Grand Inquisitor. So until that next list comes around, leave a like, comment down below, subscribe so you're not missing a thing, and most importantly, always remember that it's great to be in the Empire today.